This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. Whether you're using a phone or a laptop, a desktop, protecting your privacy online is important, and a VPN is really the best way to do that. And PureVPN is a great service that allows you to protect your privacy and report a different location. So if you're out of the country or out of town and you want to be able to get better access to your local sports or your local news or something like that, you can do that. Right now, they've got a deal. You can get a 7-day free trial, which doesn't negate the 31-day money-back guarantee. Plus, you can get $6.49 per month after the trial. It's 99 cents for the 7 days, and then $6.49 per month. And you don't have to sign any kind of contract or anything like that. It's a really great deal. And if you do go for longer, you get better prices. And to find out about all of that, you can go to pilchpoint.live/purevpn. All right, Avram, what have you got for us tonight?
All right. I have to say, for our regular listeners, by the way, as we mentioned prior, here's the new Bcaster, Neat Microphones Bcaster mic that I've been using. So I know a lot has been going on lately. I've been talking a lot about one of my favorite topics, which is Raspberry Pi stuff. I promise that next week, even if it turns out that the movie War Games happens for real, and the Joshua computer is based on Raspberry Pi, I won't talk about it because we've talked about it so many weeks in a row. But for now, I want to talk about something interesting and cool that happened in Raspberry Pi world recently, which is that now there is an 8 gigabyte Raspberry Pi 4. So that is the most gigabytes of RAM that it's ever had, and as a result, there's the operating system strategy has also changed. It used to be that for your Raspberry Pi, you had the official operating system was called Raspbian. It's a form of Linux, and it was 32-bit only. Well, if you know much about operating systems and bits, you know that generally speaking, 32-bit operating systems cannot use more than 4 gigabytes of RAM, which is why most people today have 64-bit Windows. And there's really no reason to have 32-bit unless you have a computer with a processor that is so old that it doesn't support 64-bit. But that would be quite an old computer at this point. Maybe like a netbook with an Atom processor would need 32-bit still. Raspberry Pi now also has a 64-bit version of their operating system, and they've changed the name of both the 32-bit and the new 64-bit operating system to Raspberry Pi OS, which is, very obvious what it stands for. It used to be called Raspbian, but now because the folks who were running the independent Raspbian project were only doing the 32-bit version, and they were allowing all kinds of other Raspbian's actually part of the operating system. It's not the whole kernel and everything, is now called Raspberry Pi OS. But what I wanted to show folks, for those who are watching and not just listening, I've got pulled up here. I'm going to try to do a screen share. I've got pulled up here on my screen a Raspberry Pi 8 gigabyte. And actually, this is running the 32-bit operating system, but it doesn't matter because the 32-bit operating system, Raspberry Pi, actually is able to use all 8 gigabytes. It just can't use them all for more than 4 gigabytes for one process. Mm-hmm. But if you have tabs in a browser, those each count as different processes. So let's look here. I just want to show how much work I had to do to get it to actually even use over 4 gigabytes. So right now it's using 4.2 gigabytes out of 7.8, really it's 8, but you know how it is with operating systems. They never give you quite exactly the full amount of RAM or storage that you have. Some of it's reserved. So in my browser, I have 60 tabs open. Several of these
Jesus.
tabs have 4K videos playing in them, or at least loaded from hdtrailers.net, which is a place that, unlike YouTube, is actually like downloading the trailers. It's not like upscaling or something like that. So it's like in the browser. Like here's one I had downloaded for really not many 4K true 4K trailers
Mhm.
that are available for download, believe it or not. Most of the things you find on YouTube are upscales that someone has done. So hdtrailers.net, which has like actual downloadable trailers for things, has like maybe four, and one of them is for the movie Interstellar, from which came out what, 8 years ago or something. Um, and you know, so I have that loaded, and this other movie, which I don't know what it's called, looks like some kind of nature thing called Samsara, which had like an even bigger 4K trailer. Even with those open in multiple tabs, I'm only using 4.2 gigabytes. Even with several other programs open, including a spreadsheet program, and Scratch Desktop, which is a big programming program, and Gimp, which is an image editor. And I don't have it up here on the screen because I don't have it installed on this machine here, but OpenShot, which is a video editor. In short, the real news is most people probably don't need the 8 gigabyte version, because it's actually, you have to work really hard to get to use over 4 gigabytes at this point. Now, maybe in the future with some improvements, some caching, using it to improve performance, um, using something like running a virtual machine or a fancy server, you could really get over that. You comfortably need that 8 gigabytes. But right now, it's just kind of cool that we've gotten to that point. So the 8 gigabyte model is available now for $75. The 4 gigabyte is $55 as it has been, and the 2 gigabyte Raspberry Pi 4. Those are the three capacities, 2, 4, and 8. The Raspberry Pi 4, which is the latest model. Uh, so it's $35 for the two, 55 for the 4, and 75 for the 8. If you already have a 4, I don't. For 99% of people, there's not a compelling reason right now to buy an 8. But if you didn't have one and you're thinking, I want to future proof my investment, I might want to use this as like a real computer rather than just for like building robots and fun projects, then it might make some sense to actually, it might make some sense to buy the 8. I'm going to see here if I have one that I can actually show folks what the board looks like. I have one here. I can pull out, I think. Maybe. And I have to just unplug the one that I have, because there's a few. You can actually see a physical difference on the board. Yeah, here. Okay. Let's stop sharing my screen and I'll show everybody. So if you see here, this is the Raspberry Pi 4, 8 gigabytes, and if somebody just handed you a Raspberry Pi 4, I don't know if you know anyone who's just handing you Raspberry Pi 4s, or you had a drawer full of them, you don't know which is which. The way you would tell which one is 8 gigabytes, telling between 2 and 4, I don't think is this easy, is there's this, by the USB-C port, there's this like little set of 3 black transistors, or chips.
Uh-huh.
It looks sort of like eyes in a mouth.
Yeah, they do.
Right?
What?
That is only on the 8. So on the 4 and 2, you won't see that. So if somebody just throws a Raspberry Pi 4 at you, and you catch it, and you don't turn it on, and you want to know whether it's 8 gigabyte or not, look for, near the USB-C port, a set of 3 black chips that look like a face, and that will tell you.
A slightly
Not
shocked,
very,
a slightly
likely
shocked
you would
face.
need. Yes, a slightly shocked with no nose, but because you can see here, I think this is a 2 gigabyte I have here, and you can see it doesn't have the face
Oh yeah.
over there. So it needs that extra power. I think it's extra power support over there because it's using it. It needs
Hmm.
it to distribute the power to the
Sure.
more RAM. Other than this, the performance is identical across 2, 4, and 8. So there's not, the CPU is the same, everything else is the same. You're not getting more or less performance, CPU performance for having a different amount of RAM. So that's so as I said, new operating system name, 64-bit operating system available now for Raspberry Pi OS, moved up to 8 GB, and in something that is relevant and timely because we do a lot of coverage of other, of tutorials and things like that. We also just put up on Friday a tutorial on how to use a Raspberry Pi as a body camera for
Hmm.
yourself. Um, I don't. That was done by Les Pounder, our new associate editor, who lives in England. So I don't have one here to show you, but the article is up on tomshardware.com. That uses actually a Pi Zero W, not the Raspberry Pi 4. But that's kind of neat because for about $40 to $50 worth of parts, some of which you may already have, such as like a phone bank a power bank for your phone,
Hmm.
um, you can create a little body camera that you stick in your front pocket, assuming you have a front pocket, and use that either like you would a GoPro for sports, jogging, playing with the kids, or if you are attending a protest
Hmm.
and you want to make sure that you're capturing things that are going on at the protest. um, it's also really good for that, and instructions will show you how to capture the video, and then it will automatically upload to the crowd, to the cloud. Maybe video of a crowd, but it'll be in the cloud, um, so that so that if something happens to your camera, like let's say somebody knocks you on the ground, it gets broken, that video will still be saved, and you can share it with people.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that tutorial. And I thought that was a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, the interesting thing, a little inside baseball about the editorial process behind that was Les. He just started for us this week, but we worked with him a long time as a freelancer, and I asked him if he could do the story, and he did. And then the first set of pictures he sent us for how he constructed it, he had gotten someone to basically model it, and the way he had set it up was he had duct taped it to a jacket, and he had there's a button for turning it on and off, right, for enabling a camera, but the button was on a wire, right, like a long
Oh
wire.
no!
For those of you who are listening, just it looked like a suicide vest,
Oh
right?
no!
um, something that a terrorist might wear. And, I mean, and so I had to write to him and be like, can we like change this around that with advice that we're giving people so it doesn't look suspicious? Because, we don't want people, going somewhere and the police thinking that
Yeah,
that they're
yeah,
wearing,
yeah.
a
Having it
weapon when it's just a camera.
having it go the other way, where all of a sudden it becomes the thing that makes you suspicious. That's not better.
Yeah, 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 exactly. I mean, by the way, if you look on Amazon or other online stores, there are a lot of body cameras that people can buy pre-made
Hmm.
but those are about $150. And I'm not sure if they all go to the cloud. Um, so, this is a neat use of Raspberry Pi. I mean, a Pi Zero W is $10, and then you will want a camera module, and you'll want a case for it and the battery, but you may already have a phone battery, and you may already have a micro SD card, and so it may actually not, even if you don't have any of those things, it probably still only be 40 or $50.
Hmm.
So anyway, uh, I certainly recommend people check it out. We got him to kind of construct it in a way where the button is not hanging off on a wire, so it doesn't look like it's some kind of detonator or something. And you know, it looks more like what it is, which is an innocent camera. But you know, if you've seen a lot of movies where, you know, people are doing bad things, you might, if you saw the original photo that we didn't use of it, you might think, "Uh-oh, I don't want to be caught wearing this in public because people might think that I'm about to do something bad."
You might recognize the design.
Yeah.
And both of these are up now?
Yeah. So everything is up now. So we have an article. We have an article up on testing of the 8 GB Raspberry Pi 4. We also have a new guide to how to use and which Raspberry Pi 4 you should buy, and we have the tutorial on how to make your own Raspberry Pi body camera. And if you're interested in other projects, we have the projects of June 2020, Raspberry Pi projects of June 2020 that went up this week also. We do that monthly now, where we list the coolest projects that we've seen people doing that month on the internet.
I love that.
One of the cool projects that I am sure will make it into July, because we just reported on this week, is some person. We also have an article on this. Some person built a remote control Raspberry Pi robot that drives around their backyard, and you can go online and drive the robot around their backyard yourself.
Nice.
So that sounds like fun. You know.
Is it one person can control it at a time, or is it kind of like how Mixer does like the polling, and if 3 people say it turns left, it turns left?
Good question. I haven't haven't really gone in and tried that. So okay. There are other Project I have seen time. Other sites before where anyone who has it loaded can issue a command. Mm-hmm. I guess this is on the presumption that there's not going to be a lot of people simultaneously driving it in different directions.
Something tells me that'll change if they publish about it.
We did, so we'll find out. Or that person will find out. You know, but it's just, there's a lot of cool, fun things that people do. And what I've always loved and what I continue to love about Raspberry Pi is just the inventiveness mm-hmm. that it gets people to be so creative in doing really neat things. And some of the things are genuinely like, hey, this is pretty useful. Like, I could really use the body camera to go out and record things. But some of it is just, hey, this is a cool thing to try. This is a cool thing to do, and I'm going to do it because I can, not because I absolutely have a burning need. You know, I think it's, you know, if you really love technology, then you probably love doing things or seeing things where people are pushing the envelope. How can I do this in a cooler, different, better way? You know, I think there's so many things in life you could say that about, like, oh, do I need a smart light bulb, or could I just go walk across the room and turn it on and off? Or, you know, get like a timer that plugs into the socket. Yeah, you could do all those things, but isn't it much cooler to be able to do it from an app, or do it from, you know, voice assistant? So there's just a lot of cool things out there, and we definitely have them covered at tomshardware.com.
Very cool. Well, as always, Avram, I love to hear about the stuff that you guys are working on. I love that there's that upgraded version of the Raspberry Pi 4, because, like you said, with 8 gigs of RAM, that gives kind of a wider scale of things that people can work on top of what we already know about. So I look forward to seeing what's going to come from that.
Yeah, also you have to add in the fact that they just also released, which we've covered and have a tutorial on, how you can use an SSD as your boot drive mm-hmm. for Raspberry Pi. So now you're attaching an SSD to the USB 3 port, and you can boot off of that, and you have 8 gigs. So, and you can output to 2 4K monitors if you want. So, this is becoming a more and more feasible solution for someone to use as an actual computer. I don't think I know too many people who would choose this over like, an x86 desktop or laptop in terms of performance, but it's feasible to use in a pinch or give to a kid or something like that.
Or even as like a lockdown computer environment for a very like a kiosk, a very specific set of
Yeah.
capabilities. It would be an ideal
Yeah.
scenario.
No,
So all kinds of cool stuff coming from
a lot
there.
of things like that.
Yeah. Well, as always,
Yep.
Abram, thank you, and I look forward to what we talk about next.